Okay, let's get started. We are streaming, we are recording, great things are happening. It is Mastermind with Neil Schwartz, and our guest today is Dominic Nicoli. Dominic, welcome to our group. Welcome to our humble abode, I guess, if you will, our virtual real estate office. We're really glad that you're here. We were just chatting here a couple of minutes ago, and Dominic and I go back with Mike Ferry, oh my gosh, 25, 30 years, and come a long way, baby. You've done a phenomenal job up there in Silicon Valley. Thank you.
Been a long journey, but a fun journey.
Yes, it has been. It has been. So, Dominic, can you do a little bit of a Reader's Digest version of your career, kind of where you started, how old you were, a little bit of that for us, so we can kind of get a lay of the land here?
Yeah, absolutely. I was 23. I had gotten my parents were both real estate brokers and developers, so I had gotten my real estate license when I was 18, and I knew for sure one thing, which was I didn't want to get into the real estate business, And I graduated San Jose State, and I had looked for a job, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I was pretty sure I wanted to do sales. And through a long story that we won't share at this point, I was connected with Gino Blafari, who you know, Neil.
Of course.
He is the CEO of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, and at the time he was a real estate broker in Silicon Valley, and he ran an office. He was selling, and he ran an office, and he was one of the owners of a small company that we had. And I went and met with him, and his real estate operation was like nothing I had ever seen. It wasn't anything like I had ever grown up with or seen. It was a state-of-the-art, professional, incredible office environment. And I like knew right off the bat that that's what I wanted to do. Problem was, I had no experience. I grew up about an hour away, and I didn't bring a hell of a lot to the table at the time. And so I basically figured out a way to work for him. And that was door knocking when I was 20. So I'd go to San Jose State in the morning, finishing up my class. In the afternoon, I'd come back and grab notepads in my Honda Accord that had blue smoke coming out the back. And I would go and drop notepads off in his geographic farm. And the only thing I knew about real estate, the only little bit of experience I had is when I had gotten my license a couple years back, somebody had given me a set of Floyd Wickman tapes. And I knew you had to prospect. And so I needed money. I was getting married at the time. I mean, I was hungry. And I asked Gino, I said, hey, after I finished notepads, would it be okay if I came into the office and just made prospect calls, And what was different than today is like nobody did that. And so I was reading the Floyd Wickman scripts calling for sale by owners and expired listings. And I think I set 2 appointments in my first week reading the scripts just verbatim off the paper. And I think Gino goes like, wow, ding, 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 ding. I got something here, maybe, And that's kind of how it started.
Oh, that's great. That's fantastic. Yeah. So you started there, and then your career kind of blossomed over time. And at the peak of the sales for you, so 20 something years, how many deals and how much GCI?
Well, I was making $1 million by the time I was 30. I met Mike Ferry at a young age. I was 25 or 26, and that just really fit my style. And I did very well early on. And then peak in terms of numbers, we got back in the REO days, I hit 130 deals or something like that. We had, but typically my production was between 50 deals and 60 deals, somewhere in that range. And
right.
We work in a kind of a different market. There, we don't have a lot of real high volume. Our market's pretty high end. So it's like our top agent, our company, might do 90 deals, but he'll make $8 million.
But make $8 million, right?
Yeah. So It's different in the markets that I work. I'm kind of up the peninsula between, my office is in Los Altos, and between Los Altos and San Francisco is where I work. And so, so that's kind of what it is. But, last year was last year I grossed, GCI was right around 1.4, and I've been really tracking to try to get to $2 million. And, that's kind of my big goal right now.
Got it. So let me ask you something. 19 was a good year, 1.4, healthy. You were coming into 2020, probably looking at $2 million. And then we ran into a little bit of a buzzsaw for some of us.
Yeah.
We call it COVID-19, right? So how did what happened there for you?
Well, we've been through a couple of these crazy things, right? We had 9/11, and then we had the subprime thing. So, honestly, this one wasn't crazy business-wise. It was just, I think, for me, it was just getting my feet on the ground to try to understand how we were going to sell, because, and I'm sure you guys were the same way, but, we couldn't show property unless they were vacant, and, we couldn't go on listing appointments in the beginning, and, it was just hard to figure out how to operate. Fortunately for me, I had a pretty good pipeline going into it, and I just happened to have a number of vacant listings and things like that. So we were selling stuff all the way through. I mean, I've really never stopped being busy. It was weird prospecting because we were trying to be sensitive to, the people out there. I mean, we had a lot of fear, with what the heck is happening. But what I did do is one of the things I started doing immediately, which I know you guys talked about today, was I started reaching out to my past clients. And I felt like it was probably the best opportunity since I've been doing this, to show value to our clients, just to be out there as a resource, not so much to be asking them for business, but just being out there to educate them and give them, value. If that makes sense.
Yeah, of course, and that's exactly what you did. You had a little bit of a stall. That's what I think I'm hearing. A little bit of a stall, okay, and then found your feet, found the ground beneath your feet, and then continued to do business, etc. I guess the question is, and a lot of top agents, what goes through your head with that kind of a thing? I mean, the truth is, you know this as well as I do, that some agents stalled and never got going again. Mm-hmm. And, guys like you, just put one foot in front of the other every day. What gets you out of bed every morning?
Well, I think, I caught up on a lot of Netflix during that COVID time. And one of the shows we watched was Ozarks, right? And there was a line about, what was it? Never let a crisis go to waste or something like that.
Waste. Yeah. Yeah, there's a couple politicians that use that one too.
Exactly. But, in these difficult times, there's tons of opportunity. And, what I know from going through a couple of these things is, the people that are innovative and adaptable are going to dominate. And so, for me, it was, we just had to change a few things. I mean, we had to start, but honestly, I'm so excited about a few of the things because, I'm sure like you guys, the traffic in the Bay Area has become brutal. 20 years ago, I go across town to a listing appointment, it'd take me 20 minutes. Now it can be an hour and a half. And so this whole Zoom thing is incredibly efficient. And I was really excited about it. And honestly, I think the clients kind of like it better too. It's just a wonderful tool. And, as we started to use it, I was like, man, I'm using this thing after COVID's over. Yeah. We can really take advantage of it. And not just listing appointments, but, how many times do I go over to a house that I could easily do a Zoom call or, getting a price reduction or, any of these critical, times that we need to deal with our clients. It's just so friggin' easy to pop on the Zoom call and, and we have, things like what you're doing right now. I mean, we can post, I did interviews with top producers and owners of our company, and just all these great tools that we could use to reach people. So I think in the long run, the way I see it, I think we'll come out of this better, more efficient as an industry than we went into it. And that I'm excited about.
That's great. That's great. So you took time to practice Zoom listing presentations and how to get contracts signed over the Zoom and things like that. You're still doing that now.
It's great. I have two scheduled. I have one scheduled for today, one scheduled for tomorrow. I had one yesterday. So it's, the clients like it. Like I said, you can have them even walk around the house with their, FaceTime you and show you the house. I mean, and
right.
It's great.
Good. So let's talk post COVID now. You kind of opened that door a little bit that you're going to still use some of the things that we learned during COVID. So talk about that a little bit.
Well, I was going to share, kind of with you guys, I'd say for now, I mean, my plan is really the only thing different right now than before COVID is, I'm still working from my house, and the challenge for me, and it's exactly what you guys are doing here today, is keeping the team connected and engaged, because, I haven't slowed down, but my team the efficiency has definitely dropped off. And so, that's probably the biggest challenge that I'm faced with right now. So I do want to get back into the office and, get back on a normal routine. We're still required, I don't know if you guys are, but we're required to wear face masks in the office. And, so it's at this point, I'm still saying, you know what, I don't want to do that. I'd rather just work. I have a home office, so it's perfectly fine. But we're experiencing, and you guys probably are too, this is like our spring right now, as far as I look at it. So, I mean, this is the time that there is so much pent up, demand. I counted, I think, several thousand sellers that normally would have put their homes on the market that haven't, right? And so many buyers that, haven't moved yet that obviously want to buy. We have low interest rates. It's just a premium time to be back in the market. And I don't know about you guys, but a lot of our clients, I think, still think the market is bad. And when we look at the numbers, the market's friggin' phenomenal. So, we have to get that message out, and that's kind of what we're doing as a team.
Got it. Okay. So a lot of, you still cold call, door knock? You don't door knock, sorry, but you're cold calling?
It's funny. I was going to, I had written down a bunch of notes to share with you guys. My business today is very different than it was, 20 years ago. It was about 5 years ago, I think. I'm working with my coach, Kathy, and I'm complaining to her, because none of your agents probably complain to you guys, right? Yeah.
No one.
I'm complaining to her because, my expired listing production has been going down. Now we're in a market in Silicon Valley where the inventory has been very low. It's been a market that's got double-digit appreciation many years. So there's not a lot of expireds, but, I'm an old Mike Ferry guy, right? And so we're cold calling, and I'm complaining because my expired production is down, and, and it's taking longer to make contacts and all those things. And we really started to look at the business, and, Mike's always been big on sourcing your business and, really looking at your business like a business. So I really took some time to look back on the last few years and look at what was going on with my business, which I should have been doing more consistently. But what I saw was that 70% of my business was coming from, my sphere of influence, past clients, referrals, all those great things that I had done all the years. And here I am spending 75% of my time every day calling for an expired listing. So what we did is we looked, and I said, I've got about 800 people in my database. I think actually I talked to you, Neil, about this because I had about 800 people in my database, and I was getting about 40 deals out of it, which is 5%.
Right.
And I'm going like, damn it, I'm calling them. I'm in touch with them. I think I'm doing a pretty good job with these people, but I'm only getting like 5%. And I made a decision then that I was gonna kind of flip-flop my business around. Instead of spending 75% of my time on my expireds, I was gonna, allocate a lot of time to my past clients, and not only get more out of that group and do a better job with them, but also to delete, to purge, to add, to bring more people in, because I hadn't done a really good job of that. I've just been basically going through the motions, and I will tell you that as a result of that, I make less contacts today than I used to. I'll still make 25 a day, but 15 to 20 of those every day are now my past clients, and I spend no more than about an hour calling expired listings anymore. And it's
what size is your database?
I have about 850 people in there.
Okay, so you shrunk the database and then rebuilt it. So this is what we're talking about. Yeah.
I got rid of people that I did not want to call. I put them in a separate database where they get an email, or I slide dial them. And all the people that are in my database to call, I'm excited when I get to pick that stack up every day, because they're all people I enjoy talking to.
Right.
And that was probably one of the best things that I had done. And at the same time, I was one of those guys that was like, I want to have 20 leads coming in every day, and I want, and I started to realize that I actually did better with less leads, but better quality leads that I could really focus on, because I only really need about 3 listings a week to just crush it in my market. So, and I remember Michael was saying, well, that means you need 3 leads, and I had 300 leads, and so I just changed my mindset around that to where it's like, now here's the other thing. And I don't know if this applies to any of you guys, but it applied to me. Not only was I spending all that time calling expired listings, but when I dove into my business, I also realized that my ratio of converting those listings, those leads to listings, was about 50%. My COI business was like 100%. It was damn close to 100%. So it was taking me not only more time to get those leads, but I had to go on twice as many appointments to get a listing. And then when I looked back and I looked at which of my listings for the year had expired or canceled, they were almost all the expired listings. Right. So not only was it, inefficient on my time, but when I really looked at it, I was like, wow, this is so we're very, way more selective with the leads, that the expireds and those types of leads that we do take. We really are, I scrutinize them very carefully. They're very thoroughly qualified, before we'll take one, because, we know the cost of an expired listing is huge.
Well, the financial cost, but also the emotional cost of a property, because the properties that expire and the properties that are problems, and the emotional angst that comes into your life from trying to keep something together. One of the guys, I think it was Jason Penrose, said that sometimes to keep one deal together, we lose 5.
That's the worst. It is the worst, and it honest to God took me 15 to 20 years to figure that out. I guess I got a low IQ, I guess. Yeah. But I wrote down just a few things specifically that I changed in my business that I'll share with you.
Please.
Okay. So I mentioned already, I limited my expired and my for sale by owner calling to about an hour a day. I still call them right off the bat, first thing in the morning. If I can be the first one to call, that's what I try to do, or one of the first ones. We have a very competitive expired market here. So, by 9 o'clock, they've had 20 calls. I'm sure your market's probably similar.
Right.
I wrote down, I started contacting 15 past clients a day. And what I did, and I took this out of Gino's book, if my past clients needed anything, I just looked for something that I could do for them, even if it wasn't, they didn't have any need to sell, or if they needed an appraiser or a notary, or whatever. If there was just any opportunity to do something extra for them, I started looking for things to do to give them value. And I wanted them to know that I wasn't just a realtor, but I wanted to be their trusted advisor with, like, if you need a CPA, if you need an attorney, if you need, and I knew that I could use those referrals to get referrals from the professionals that I was sending them to. Right. So, that's been a huge thing for me. So, I go out of my way if I can to send people to my financial planners, to our lenders that, I know will refer business back, anything I can do, to try to, really boost that up. It's like a win-win. I win with my client. I win with the person I'm referring him to. I just said, we talked about, I added more people to my database. We had kids that I coached my kids' ball teams and things like that. I had parents that I knew that weren't even in my database, so I went back and started looking at where are all the different people I'm coming in contact with on a consistent basis that should be in my, I should be prospecting that they're not even hearing from me. And that was huge. I wrote down, I limited my cold calling and door knocking. So I still think it's valuable. But what I did for me is I just limited it to maybe 50 right around a listing or a sale. So I could specifically target, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we just sold the Smith's home down the road. It was a 4-bed, and it was really like they could relate, right? It was the street like next to them or just a couple of streets away. In the past, I would do just listed, just sold calls in the entire zip code. And so, that was different. And then I wrote down this one, which I think is really important. And I got this from Kathy Anderson. But instead of focusing on contacts, what I really started focusing on, and I still do every day today, is connections. And they're very different, And I always, when I first started with Mike Ferry, it was like we wanted to make 50 contacts a day. And then there was we went to 100 contacts, and started to realize it doesn't really matter how many people you talk to. If you're not connecting with them, nothing's going to happen. And so, it's just, Kathy always talked about, who are you being in every single call? And I think as I've gotten older, it's become much more important to me that, it's so important to know our scripts so that we can listen to the customer. We can understand and empathize with them. We can, I try to have fun. I try to make them laugh if I can, or add some little humor and be like a human being, not a robot. And it's made a huge difference, not only in the results that we get, but also the enjoyment that I get from calling people. It's just so much more fun when you're connected, and they see so much more value in it. And I have such a challenge with our new salespeople when they come in and they want to be slick and, these lines. And it's really not about that. It's about, how do I get their trust? How do I get their respect? And once I can get those two things, then I can influence them and get them to do what I know is going to be best for them. And so that's really important. And then lastly, I'll just talk real quickly about what we do for I call them, so the COI, I just call people that we know. And then I always say that, the next people that we prospect are people we don't know. And of that group, the only ones I'm having my team call, we're calling expireds and for sale by owners because we know they want to sell. Nothing there. And I don't know if you guys have done this with your title companies. Our title company can do all sorts of crazy research now. And we can take geographic areas. And in our area, we found out that non-owner occupieds are 8 times more likely to sell their house than a regular seller. And that's been proven. And so, if we're going to make cold calls, they're damn well going to be to people that we know are 8 times more likely to sell. Every call is like making 8 calls, So blinding flash the obvious. And then we also can find out anybody that inherited property and probates, right? Because we know that those people are way more likely to sell. So, so when we talk about cold calling, we're really, in my opinion, not making cold calls. We're making strategic contacts. And my team is doing more of that now than I am. And I'm more focused on the database. So, hopefully that gives you guys a little insight into.
No, that's great. That's great.
Over the years.
Look, coincidentally, a lot of the things that you shared with us are stuff that we're doing because we come from the same place. But it's great to hear it, again and again and again, because sometimes when I say it, when Dad brings it up, yeah, Neil, for rent by owners, yeah, we heard enough. But we learned, actually, we came across that kind of early on in this whole thing, that 30% of all the properties that went pending during quarantine were vacant. And so we went after as many vacant sources of properties as we could find. It made a huge difference for us. It sounds like it did too for you.
Yeah, it's just the hardest one to wrap my head around was, Kathy, my coach, who I love to death, previous coach. She was just so convinced if I would have just even spent more time in my database, I almost wouldn't have had to do anything else, and I was just, grappling with that one back and forth. But, I really,
I'm going to take that quote and I'm going to pull it out, because I say that to them all the time, Dominic. But Dominic, it's not too late.
It's not too late. It's not too late.
It's not too late. Good for you.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Before we open up the questions a little bit, I had asked you the other day about one of your favorite objections.
Yes.
So I kind of that's something I want to start to have our guests do, which is an objection handler or something that works for them. So did you have one that you wanted to share with us?
I just wrote a little list of my favorite lines, because I know you guys wanted a couple things these are things that I haven't necessarily invented, but I've picked off from some of the great superstars, like I'm sure you guys have too. So I'll share a few of these things. That I just want to say one thing too, and I'm sure you guys talk about this a lot, but it's just with my team, it comes up over and over and over again. When we close for the appointments, oftentimes I hear my guys, they do it too early. They do it without being in rapport, and it's so important that all these objections, if you're, you have to develop that internal feeling of when you're in rapport. And if you're not, it doesn't matter what you say, you're not going to get the appointment. So you have to know how to go back and just ask questions and get them talking and get them back engaged. And then these closes work like miracles. My good friend Josh Barker always told me, which I think about every time I'm on the phone, is my only job on the phone is to set an appointment and to do it as quick as possible. And no selling on the phone when you could possibly avoid it. And so none of this stuff I'm going to share with you is it's very simple, but it really works well if you take the steps to, go through the script, get them talking, get past the sales radar that they all have. And then, just simple closes work super, super well. It's really not very complicated. So here's one that I love that we ask every time. Okay. And we usually ask this after the third question on the expired script. And it's so simple, but if I could find a buyer for your home in the next 30 days, would that help you? Okay.
Got it.
Most of them say yes. Great. Let's set an appointment. You could either set an appointment, or we can set an appointment face-to-face, or we could schedule a Zoom call, which would work better for you. And it's just simple. If we could find a buyer for you in the next 30 days, would that help you? Okay. And I love saying, would that help you? Because it really, it changes the tone of from what's good for me to what's good for them. Okay. Good. Now I wrote down, if you've got let's say you're making a just listed or just sold call, and you find somebody that wants to sell, but they've got some kind of an objection, like, call me next year, my wife is retiring, or, some reason that they can't sell today. I have my team say, if we found a buyer that was willing to make a great offer now, could you move your plans up? Again, super obvious question, but every time we stick a lead in for down the road, we haven't asked that question. A lot of times we've had people say, well, yeah, if we got a good offer now, we could move into Aunt Maggie's house or, something else. So that's been a good one for us. Another one I like, and I'll email these to you, Neil, so you can have them.
Thank you.
But on the expired script, when we ask, why do you feel your home didn't sell? What I've added in the beginning to that is, gosh, guys, I'm looking at the photos of your home right now. I have to say it looks amazing. Or if it's a piece of crap, it looks like a great value. Okay. Why do you feel it didn't sell? Okay. So it's just, and then what it does is it kind of takes the edge off. And a lot of times if their house is nice, they'll be like, yeah, it's beautiful. I don't know why it didn't sell. We've done all this work to it. Now, it's a wonderful question to get them on my side. Okay. Like, and I'm surprised at how, when I say it, it's like, gosh, guys, I'm looking at the photos. Your house looks wonderful. Why do you feel it didn't sell? You know, like, I'm shocked, you know, and they're shocked too, right? And we can be shocked together, you know, and then they start talking and now I'm like, you know, on their side, you know? So, and then this is one that I got from Josh Barker that we use all the time. And this is for when they say, we've got an agent, or we're going to relist with the same agent, or anything with the same agent, you know, whatever. And this is a really good one. I'll send it to you because it's a little bit long, probably hard to write down. But I'll say, you know, Neil says, well, you know, we appreciate it, Dominic, but we're going to relist with, you know, Steve Smith. And I say, great, you know, totally understand that. You know, Neil, can I share with you what most smart sellers are doing these days when their home doesn't sell? And he'll say, sure. And I say, you know, they're definitely interviewing 2 or 3 real strong agents to compare marketing plan and track record and results, because different agents get dramatically different results. I'm assuming you guys would definitely want to get a second opinion before you just lock back in with Steve, right?
Let me get through this deal first.
Okay. Works like a freaking charm, you know? Great, let's set an appointment. And sometimes I even say, you know, I'll make you this promise. You won't even need to list with me. Don't list with me unless I'm dramatically better than Steve. We have that deal? So, you know, and then it's like, you know, great. So I wrote down one for when they say, we don't want to, you know, we don't want to list it, you know, bring me a buyer. Sometimes I'll kind of like get in rapport with them and I'll say, look, I got no interest in listing your property either, but I am interested in selling it. And it sounds like you guys want to get it sold, right? Great, let's set up a time to meet and I can show you how we can find a buyer for your home in the next 30 days, you know? I can see it tomorrow. And the attitude kind of works good with that one, when they're kind of going in your face like, I don't want to list it. You know, you're just looking for a list. Look, I'm not looking for a listing. I'm not interested, but I do want to sell it. And it sounds like you guys want to move to Phoenix, right? Great, let's set an appointment and I can show you how we get you to Phoenix in the next 60 days. Sound good? Great, let's get together, okay? I just wrote down some couple of little subtlety things. So sometimes when they'll say something like, "Oh yeah, we've already got an agent. We already signed. You know, we're already, you know, listed the property." I'll say, "Great. You know, when are you planning to sign the paperwork?" And about 1 out of every 5 times when they say they've chosen an agent, they'll say, "Well, we're probably going to sign it next week." And then I'll go right into my, you know what? May I share with you what most smart sellers are doing? You know, and so. And I've gotten appointments just from asking that question instead of, have you already signed? I hate when my team says, have you already signed the listing? Because they'll say yes. But if I say, when are you planning to sign the paperwork? Sometimes they say, probably next week. Okay, and it just creates a little opening. And sometimes they say, you know what? We're just not convinced it would sell. Something like that. We just don't really want to do anything right now. And I'll say, you know, why don't we do this? Let's get together. We'll only consider working together if we're both convinced it will sell. Worst case scenario, I'll have seen the property and I can keep it in mind for future buyers. But either way, let's get together. I can see it Monday or Tuesday at 4, you know? So those are a few of the ones that I use very frequently. And if you come and listen to me prospect in the office, it's pretty much you hear the same thing every time. There's not a lot of deviation from the, you know, the objection handlers, because we only get the same ones every single time, you know?
Right.
The magic is pretending like it's the first time you ever heard it, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. That's fantastic. Sure. So let me ask you, Dominic, you got a couple minutes for some questions?
Absolutely.
A little bit of time?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So questions for Dominic Nicoli. Anything out there right now?
Dominic, it's me, Michael. It's very nice. It was writing down a lot of notes here. Thank you very much for sharing.
You're welcome.
So you said for relist, your first line is great. Can I share with you what most of the smart home sellers do nowadays? What do you go after that?
I'm gonna email it to you so you'll have it, okay?
Oh,
and I'll email it to Neil and then Neil can send it out to you.
Okay, that'll be.
Right. And good job calling your past clients today.
Will do. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dominic.
Good job. Excellent. All right. Other questions for Dominic today? Go ahead, Carlos, unmute yourself, Carlos. Carlos, you have to unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you
We
now.
can hear you.
Okay, you mentioned making connections. So you're cold calling, somebody says, yes, I don't want to sell now, but maybe next year. Please keep checking with me. Call me every 2 weeks or stop by. So,
Yeah.
okay, so you stop by, you're in the neighborhood passing flyers or blah, blah, blah. How do you make a connection out of that?
Well, the first thing I would do is I would use the script on the call. So if they said that, I'd say, great. You know, by the way, how long have you guys lived in the neighborhood? You know, and I'm looking for something to grab onto that might even go beyond the script, right? So they say, oh, we've been here for 20 years. Well, 20 years, wow, that's great. You know, boy, it sure changed a lot, hasn't it? You know, where did you guys move from originally? And they might say, we moved from LA. How did you end up all the way in Silicon Valley? Oh, you know, we moved up here for work. Interesting. Where did you work? You know, I'm trying to figure out, I want to start a conversation, right? And then when I get comfortable, hey, you know, by the way, Carlos, if you guys were ever going to make a move, where do you think you might go next? You know, well, we might go to blah, blah, blah. You might go to blah, blah, blah. How exciting. When did you guys want to be there? Well, we wanted to be there next year. You know, awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, when the time comes to sell your house, I would love to be the agent that you guys select. And just out of curiosity, if we were able to find a buyer, let's say in the next 30 to 60 days at a phenomenal price, could you guys consider selling now? Or is there a reason that you definitely have to wait till next year? You know, and that's how that conversation is going to go. And you might say, no, my wife is retiring next year. We can't move. And so I'm going to write your notes up. I'm going to put you in my COI. I'll probably ask for your email address if you have one and get all your contact. And then I'm probably going to stop by your house and just drop my card off and shake your hand and just say, hey, well, I know we talked yesterday and I just was in the neighborhood. I wanted to pop by and just introduce myself. And I'm your man when it comes time to sell. Okay. So if your plans change, call me immediately. Otherwise, I'm going to flag you and I'll be calling you every couple months just to check on your progress. It's like, you're my client now, right?
Got it. That's great, Dominic. That's fantastic. You know, Keith on Facebook, let's see, Bert on Facebook asked, how many people on your team? You referred to a team.
Well, I have one full-time staff. I got a part-time, and I have another part-time, and they're, you know, listing coordinator, escrow coordinator, and a runner. And then I have 3 young guys that I mentor because I was mentored by Gino. So I've kind of carried on that tradition. And, you know, they cumulatively will do, you know, 5 to 10 deals. So, but they prospect every morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. So you work with them more as a mentor than a team member?
Exactly. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
And then you'll help them with their transactions along the way. So these are generally brand new guys and gals?
Generally brand new guys and gals. Yeah. And I've got a couple that have graduated now that still stay affiliated with me. I get a small piece of their deal, but they do all their deals themselves. The younger guys typically it's on like a 60-40 type of deal. You know, I get 60 and they get 40, and those are deals that they would bring in and I go in and convert.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Very cool. Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
A question, Neil.
Go ahead.
This is Abigail. How do you introduce your, let's say, for example, I'm assuming you have a buyer's agent. How do you introduce your buyer's agent as a team member to the buyers? Because I'm assuming that when you're prospecting, you're able to book an appointment for a buyer lead. And what do you do? If you can take me through that step.
Yeah, I would set an appointment. So I just say, great, you know, you want to buy a property, and I'd ask your questions, right? I'd qualify you a little bit, find out what your, you know, price is and your motivation and have you been pre-approved and all that stuff. And I'd say, great, let's set an appointment for you to talk. I have a buyer specialist. Her name is Jackie. And I'll set an appointment for you to meet with her, or if it's appropriate, if it's a high-end buyer, like it might be a $2 or $3 or $4 million buyer, I may meet with them too, you know, and we may work them together. It just all depends. You know, the upper end market is different because the dollars are really big, and so they can be. And so, you know, you have to kind of take, and we work markets too that are 500,000, you know, but it would be different for buyer depending on kind of where, where they fit into that. But yeah, it's just kind of telling the truth, right? Like, great, ask them questions. You've got your qualifying script, and then set an appointment, and it really isn't ever an issue.
Cool. Very good. Thank you, Dominic.
Yeah.
This is an interesting question from Keith on Facebook. What script do you use, or your staff use, at the door with doorbell security cams?
We have played with door knocking a little bit over the last couple of years because the calling has become more difficult. We also have there's a big class action lawsuit going on with the dialers, and so it's become harder to use those tools. And so I'm just pretty direct. I pretty much use a just listed or just sold script at the door. I really like knocking doors right around my listing. So if I can even point, I'm like, hey, we just sold, the Smith's house, 2 blocks over. We had, several leftover buyers and, looking for a home in the neighborhood. And I wanted to stop by and see, when you plan on making a move, or do you have any plans to move? And then again, my whole game with that is I'm going to try to get them into a conversation. So, because at first, especially at the door, they're going to be very standoffish. So I have to make them like relax. I have to smile, and I'm going to try to get them talk. Great. How long have you guys been in the neighborhood? Gosh, it's such a great neighborhood. We have so many buyers that were interested. Where did you guys move from? And I'm trying to get them talking, and so I can get to a closing question at the end, and that's really what I'm trying to do. Or if it's a neighbor, even to get their contact information so I can add them into our, database. So I don't know if that answers the question, but I really haven't had that much of an issue with the door camera.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah.
All right, other questions for Dominic here as we wind it down? Other questions? Robert, anything that popped up in your head?
Well, yeah, so one of the questions that got sent over to me, Dominic, is you mentioned how you've kind of shifted into talking more to your database. What do you say to them? Do you just follow the Mike Ferry, this is a business call, or do you have a different way of approaching it?
So yeah, that's a really good question. And to be honest with you, my wife, Michelle, she's really good at social media. So she does all of our Facebook and Twitter and Instagram stuff that I don't even know how to do. But we have added everybody onto social media. We are physically mailing that to them once a quarter. They're getting emails from us. They get texts from us occasionally. I'm calling them. My good past clients, I'm visiting on a regular basis. So what we're trying to do is literally just hit them from every possible angle you can imagine. And the beautiful thing about social media, I know it's not a popular thing in the Mike Ferry group. It's not that you're going to get really, at least I haven't experienced getting a bunch of deals from it. But when I see my center of influence, like they're like, wow, you are doing so much. Like we see you everywhere, and so it has that kind of supplemental effect to it that I think is really valuable. And I'm experimenting. We're going to start doing some Zoom calls with our COI and ask people if they want to have 15-minute, Zoom calls to just go over what we would actually, do some research on their home and give them an idea of what their home values has happened to them, and some of those things that we can add more value to them. So I don't know if that answers your question, but we just try to hit them in every possible way that we can, and you should have a plan in place to purge your database. You should have a plan in place of what you're going to send to them. There's so much content. I mean, especially with COVID, content shouldn't be a problem. I'm sure you guys provide your agents with so much good stuff, So
Absolutely.
What do I say to them? It just depends. Right now with COVID, I've been calling people and just saying, hey, I'm just checking in on you guys. I hope you guys are safe and healthy. Do you have any questions about what's going on with the market? You know, we can talk about interest rates. You know, it just changes.
Yeah,
You know,
got it. Cool. Dominic, as we wind down here, you pour good stuff into your head all the time. You're always coming up with good, interesting information.
Yeah.
I mean, is there a particular book or person or YouTube that you've watched or would recommend, or maybe some podcasts that you're kind of into right now that are helping you move through this?
You know, funny. I just started because I'm trying to deepen my spiritual self. So I just signed up for a live class with Eckhart Tolle, which is cool because that's something kind of unique for me. I don't know if anybody mentioned it. I know one of your guys had read on track to read 40 books. What I really like is there's an app on my phone called Blinklist. I don't know if you guys have it or not. And it is, I've experimented because I want to read more than I do, and I don't always feel like I have the time. And Blinklist is like a Cliff Notes version of these books, but they do a really good, it's the best one I've ever heard where you can actually really get the meat and potatoes of these books. And so it's funny, Neil, so Wednesday mornings, every week I meet Gino at 5:30, we go for a walk, and we Blinklist, we figure out a book together, and then on our walk, we talk about the book, you know?
Wow.
And
wow.
he's all into right now. He's kind of a nutball, but right now he's all into dinosaurs and where the Earth started and all this crazy science stuff. And so, you know, we're listening to a science book tomorrow, but you know, it might be Never Split the Difference is one I read recently on negotiating, which I thought was great. Powerful Engagement is great. We just read. If you guys haven't read The Slight Edge, in my opinion, one of the easiest reads and one of the greatest books. One of those ones you can read every year. The Slight Edge. You know, and then of course I get the full dose of Mike Ferry being part of the MFO system. So, but those are some of the ones that I've reread recently.
Good. All right. I appreciate it. Very, very good. Well, look, everybody unmute yourselves. Get unmuted. Let's give Dominic a giant hand and appreciation for this. All right, baby.
Dominic, that was awesome.
Awesome.
Neil, thank you for all you've done for me over the years. And I know that you guys that are working for C21 Masters, you couldn't be in a better place. You probably don't appreciate it because you haven't been anywhere else. But let me just tell you, you guys are in the right place at the right time. So good job for all of you.
Thank you.
Absolute
Thank you so
truth.
much.
Amen.
I appreciate that big time. All right, Dominic, thanks again. Big hand for him.
All right, guys.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Dominic Nicoli. Fantastic. So a couple questions. What did you learn? What did you learn from Dominic? And you're all going to answer that Neil's the best. So we could just move on from that one. Okay. You don't have to repeat that. It's okay. I accept. You're the best. You're the best. So what did we learn today? What did we learn? Good stuff.
4 pages of notes.
Yeah. Wow. Good for you. Abigail, go ahead.
It's non-owner are 8 times, so non-owner occupants are 8 times more likely to sell. Also probate and so those are the most people that are interested in selling the most.
So did he say non-owner or did he say vacant?
Vacant, I'm sorry, vacant.
Okay, no. There's a distinction there, but that's very, very good. I think you're right. I thought it was vacant.
Vacant, yeah.
So that there goes the for rent by owners. Don't do those again. Those are 8 times as valuable. And then don't work on trying to figure out Airbnb. Don't do that either. Okay. No wonder we're crushing it and the competition's in the dust. How much for rent by owner have we had you guys doing in the last 3 months, 4 months now? Huh? How about practicing it every single workday? We practice for rent by owner every single workday. Good for you guys. That's a smart move. Okay. What else did we learn? What else did we learn? Go ahead, Armin.
I think, and I heard this on one of your other interviews, was that, you know, opportunities arise during these down times.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes. Yeah, we have heard that before, haven't we? Good. Excellent. What else did we learn this morning?
I like,
Kelly, and then
I liked his objections when he said, if I can find a buyer for you in the next 30 days, will that help you? So I think that's a really important thing, that you're coming from a place of helping.
will that help you? Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I love the one, can I share with you what other smart sellers are doing? Other smart sellers. I have just officially stolen that line. You will start seeing it in your scripts. Other smart sellers. Good job. All right, what else did we learn?
I like
Yes,
I like
Michael?
it when he said, okay. I like it when he said, I don't want to list your house. I want to sell your house. And it mirrors that. And I think that's great, because obviously we always talk about mirroring, but the way he said, don't be afraid of not being confrontational, but be, I guess, a little bit more loud than you normally be, just trying to mirror whatever they're saying.
A little bit more direct.
Right.
Absolutely. Good job. Michael Ojeda, did you have something?
Yes, I like when he said when he making the calls in the morning, his goal is to make a connection with the people, not just to call, just to have a contact. So making a connection make it more effective.
Absolutely. Good. Great thought. All right. What else did we learn today?
On top of that was the rapport aspect. So if we're asking these closing questions and we're not in rapport, we're not going to get the results. But
Exactly.
if we're in rapport, it's an easy close.
And it might take a little bit more time to get in rapport before we should start asking these other questions. So that's a great thought. Absolutely. What else did we learn today?
You know, Neil, my takeaway was I thought it was two things were fascinating. Was he had the same thing you did with Marcy last week when he realized that he was spending 70% of his time on 30% of his business. And one day, not today or soon, but one day, agents are going to start tracking their business. One day.
So it is actually, it's very interesting you bring this up, because we had this very specifically with Tess a few weeks ago. We had this with Joe Napoli in the last 6 or 8 months. Dominic Nicoli, I remember, it's been years, but I remember having that conversation with him. You know how sometimes you stand at a superstar retreat and you're just sharing a couple of ideas? It was a 10-minute conversation, probably 8 years ago. And I said, hey, Dominic, had you ever considered this? And it was like, bing, and makes a difference in the business. And then there was, of course, Marcy. We had that conversation. So I think what's happening is sometimes when an idea time is, it seems like the universe is sending the thought through lots of people and lots of thoughts here. That makes sense? We have to pay attention to this. We have to double check our business to make sure. But I think you'll find, in fact, I actually made a comment to one of our agents not that long ago who was calling expireds all the time. And I told her to never call another expired again, ever. Just call the past client and sphere. And it's played pretty handsomely for that person. So it's okay. Okay. Anyone else pick up anything today they want to share real quick?
Well, the second thing that I got out of that is he actually rewrote a plan. You asked him about post-COVID, and he said, well, can I share with you what I redid to do that? Like, so it's not that he just did what he normally does. He actually sat down and rewrote a step-by-step plan on how to get better, which I think was pretty neat.
It was great. And it's a perfect segue, Robert, into what we're going to do tomorrow at 12:15, which is the day that we're actually going to, which is the 1st of July. And the 1st of July is the first day of the second half of the year. So tomorrow we're doing an action workshop to try and help refocus you on the balance of the year. But based on what we see starting in May, and now in June, we blew the doors off of the pendings. I mean, you guys, in the month of June, this June, I don't know, 180 sales, something like that for our group. I mean, huge, huge numbers. Numbers that are just just gigantic. So, and big numbers, probably $2.5 million in commission income you've generated this month. Okay. I know we still got to close it, but you're doing business. You're doing business. So keep focused on that. Don't let off the pedal right now. Between now and the end of the year, you could do as much in 6 months as you wanted to do in 18 months. I'll bet you that's possible if you put your mind to it and you come tomorrow and work on your plan. Right, Robert? Got to have a plan. No plan, no money.
Zig Ziglar says, how can you hit a target you cannot see?
That's exactly right. You cannot hit a target you cannot see. That's exactly right. Okay, so Robert, you got some stuff you want to do here. It's 1:15.
Yeah, so we're going to actually kind of go off of a little bit of what Dominic was talking about, and we're going to do some objection handling.
All right.
So we're going to do some objection hand role play. We're going to practice boxing in.
Wow, what an idea.
I know. I know. I know. So we're going to practice boxing in. We're going to practice asking questions to dig for the motivation, to really understand that. So we're going to do some tips, and then I'm just going to rapid fire on everybody as far as I'm just going to throw an objection out there, and whoever wants to handle it can handle it. So it'll be fun. So we'll do that in 5 minutes. So 1:20. We'll start that at 1:20.
Robert,